So we all grew up hearing, diversify your assets, don't put all your eggs in one basket. And when it comes to financial sense of it, the biggest proponents are Benjamin Graham, the author of The Wealthy Investor, Ray Dalio, and during his early career, Warren Buffett. Surprisingly, in the later part of his career, he said, actually put all your eggs in one basket and wash the basket. He said, diversification is actually a protection for ignorance. If you know what you're doing, just focus on the investment that you know best. But today, we're not talking about diversification of assets. If you guys are interested, we can make a separate video for it. Today, I'm talking about some different sort of diversification. It's called jurisdictional diversification. Basically, where you have passport to one country, you live in another country where you have residency, you do business in another country, and you do banking in another country. So you do these 4 flags, they say, in 4 different jurisdictions. So today, we're gonna dive deep into it, how new this concept is it old, how necessary this is, if it's necessary, how do we actually do it and go about it? So stay tuned. So this whole thought process started for me a little over 2 years ago when I have not yet moved my family to Dubai. I was in Dubai and I was in a meeting with an investor who had a near 9-figure exit. And we're doing some consultation on his investments. And he stacked up a few meetings. And one of the meetings, when I was done with him, the meeting after him was with his legal team and accounting team. And he said, Sam, you know what, brother, you can stay. I think you'll find this meeting very beneficial. So I'm talking 2023 September, actually, exactly 2 years ago. Anyway, so his legal team, the accounting team came. I also had some time on hand. I was like, sure, let's learn. And this brother, mashallah, Allah Mubarak, near 9-figure exit. So a lot of things I had already learned. I said, like, okay, let's see what he does with his legal team and accounting team. How can he structure? He discussed with me some of his portfolio, how he wants to invest in real estate. At that time, we discussed some in the US, some in GCC, which is investing now, and what he will do with the rest. But with his legal and accounting team, the whole crux of the discussion was, how can he diversify his jurisdiction? And how can he diversify his exposure to government risk and geopolitical changes? And this was the first time I'm hearing this sort of conversation. Of course, I'm not gonna disclose his privacy, but basically you will have passport in one country. That was the whole discussion, like, hey, you have passport in this one country. We're gonna get you passport in 2 other countries. And then we're gonna get you residency in these 2 countries. And then we're gonna register your business in Dubai, and that's where Dubai came in. And your banking, you'll have banks in multiple countries, but your primary banking is gonna be in this offshore country. So basically they called it the 4 flags formula, where you have citizenship to one country, residency to another, and you do business registered in another country, and your banking haven or asset protection, your trust and all that set up in another country. And I was fascinated by that meeting. That meeting sparked my interest. Like, this is something, you know, when you're playing a new game and you go to new levels, I was like, wow, this is literally officially, I entered a new room, because I had no idea. SubhanAllah, I'm talking 2 years ago. Then, of course, he introduced me to his legal team and the accounting team. And alhamdulillah, they became one of my core legal teams that I have, alhamdulillah. And for the last 2 years, I have been also, alhamdulillah, setting up my structure similar to what he had done or what this legal and accounting team have done for him. So today, I'm not going to share exactly what I have done due to privacy, but I'll give you overall concept. And alhamdulillah, we just finished the process, and I feel like this is a huge relief on how we operate, how we move, because this world is not how it used to be. And even then, we might think, okay, what Sam is talking about now or what these guys are talking about is a completely new concept, because the world has become like a small global village. So it's not like we have to have multiple jurisdictions. But if you think about it, this is not a new concept, actually. If you look into history, Rothschild and all the conspiracies that are surrounding this family, one of the many, it's not actually conspiracy, what I'm about to tell you, is the truth. So the Rothschild family, the Rothschild brothers had banks, they owned banks in 5 different jurisdictions: London, Paris, Spain, I forgot the other 2, but basically 5 major hubs of the world. To the point, so how did it benefit them? To the point, there was Battle of Waterloo, British against Napoleon, right? Napoleon lost the battle. That news privately reached Rothschild in London. Some say a full day before the British government, and some say 2 days before the British government. He got news through his network because he was diverse jurisdictionally, if that's a word. Like, he was jurisdictionally diversified. So he had couriers, banks, all these private things set up everywhere So news reached him 2 days before the British government. So he's like, okay, so what's the big deal? He received news 2 days before. What he did actually, with his evil mind, he went and he sold off all his UK treasury bonds, British treasury bonds, saying that, man, we're going to lose the war, we're going to lose the war. He created this rumor. He started selling his bonds. So everybody started panic selling. So when everybody starts panic selling the bonds, the prices of bond discounted, decreased, and then he bought back all of them. Then when the official news came 2 days later, of course, the prices went up, and he made, to adjust it to inflation in today's value, billions of dollars. But this is not our intention. This is not what we're trying to do. But I'm saying it existed in history from a long time ago. But at least me, I'm just waking up to it now, or I have woken up to it now, alhamdulillah. So I want to share what I have learned. But my model, what I'm going to share, maybe you'll have, well, quote unquote, better options you might find if you look into non-Muslim countries. But my mission, my purpose is I want to basically, whatever little I can contribute, I want to contribute to Muslim majority economies. So the strategy that I'm implementing, I'll give you a broad idea to it, is going to be centered around Muslim majority economies. So without further ado, let's get started. So step one is the anchor, which is first buy a passport. CBI, citizenship by investment. So the three countries that you can look at for that, number one is Turkey. The requirement is $400,000 invested in Turkish real estate, and in 3 years, you get a passport. Then of course, Turkey, the con being the currency is not good at all. The Turkish lira keeps going down, so you don't know what's going to happen with that. But again, we're just getting the passport, step one. We're not talking banking in Turkey, or not talking about holding Turkish lira. This is the passport, and it's not as strong as, let's say, other EU passport, but it's strong enough for you to pretty much move freely in most of the major countries in the world, okay, without any issues. Even if you want to travel to the US with this passport, there is a process to apply, and most applications get approved. Majority applications get approved when you have a Turkish passport and you want to visit US for some business. When you apply, it gets approved. This is a strong and powerful passport, not as strong and powerful other EU, and that's why I said in the beginning of the video, we're not looking at Spanish passport, Portuguese passport, those options are there. We're looking at Muslim majority, so Turkey is very good. Second option is Egypt, okay? Very culturally strong, ancient history, a lot of benefits, but the passport is much weaker than Turkey. But of course, the cost is also lower. It's $250,000 investment. I don't know exactly if you have to buy real estate or put it in the bank. You can look it up, Egyptian citizenship by investment, but $250,000, most likely you put it in the bank, and they will also have an option of asset, and after a certain time, they'll actually issue you a passport. And with that passport, of course, the whole Africa is free for you. So it's not bad, but it's not as strong as Turkey. Then the third option is Jordan. So Jordan is $750,000, the most steep price. So Turkey, you got $400,000. Egypt, you got $250,000. Jordanian passport, I should say, costs you $750,000. So the country is very stable in the region, but spending or investing $750,000 for that passport, to me, is not worth it. The cost basically far outweighs the benefit I'll get from a Jordanian passport, purely looking at it from a commercial perspective. So my vote goes in this category with Turkish passport. Step two is your residency. This is where you live with your family. So not necessarily where you have citizenship. And I will go a step above and say, don't live in the country where you hold the citizenship too, because the whole point is jurisdictional diversification. So how are you diversifying yourself if you're holding passport to this country, also living in this country, also paying in this taxes in this country, also banking in this country, it's the same thing, right? So you hold passport, let's say to Turkey. The next step is, okay, where do I live? So for residency, a few things for you to look at. Of course, number one is how freely can you worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? The freedom of religion, and how much power does being a Muslim have in that country? And second thing is safety. This is how I look at it. So for me, the choices are very simple. And this is what exactly where the choice is when we're looking about, expanding or moving out of United States, what countries. We looked at three: UAE, Saudi Arabia, and Malaysia, okay? And I'll tell you my personal preferences. So Malaysia, everything I hear is great. I've never been to that country. But for me, all my businesses are still in the US, and they're operating. My parents are in the US. I need proximity to the States. I can't be living somewhere, I don't know how long it takes to go from Kuala Lumpur to Detroit, but even from Dubai, it takes 16, 17 hours. So I'm sure you got at least 7-8 hours to that to reach from, because it's farther than Bangladesh, where I'm from, right? Far East Asia. So for me, Malaysia was cross. But safety, it's there. Schooling is good. And of course, you can practice your deen freely. Then comes Saudi Arabia. And that was our first choice, actually. So far, my experience with the infrastructure is it's not yet there. It's not very friendly. You get different information from different agencies. They're getting there. We just need to give them some time. But we're closely eyeing Saudi Arabia for residency, right? Then, of course, we're left with UAE. So that's where we got our residency. And there are many ways to get residency in UAE. I think you can get a 2-year visa residency through some businesses, trade licenses. You can get a 10-year golden visa with 2 million dirham investment. So there are many ways to get residency here in the UAE. But the second step is find where you can live with your family freely, safely, and you can practice the deen. And the deen is being practiced so that your children can grow up watching that. So that's your step number 2. Step 3 is where you set up your corporation. And more than corporation, the whole entity structuring. What do I mean by entity structuring? On a very high level, how do you make sure your entities are structured in a way where you are anonymous? People cannot easily find who owns what. That's, in a nutshell, is what entity structuring is. So you got foundation, you got trust, then you got corporations, many things. There are good lawyers that you can work with, but the point is you have to do that entity structuring in a jurisdiction where taxes are either zero or very close to zero. So for us, again, the choices are Saudi Arabia or UAE, but ideally you want to do this in a place different than where you are living and where you have your passport. That does not happen for me yet, because my entity structuring is, of course, here, but ideally you want to do it in a jurisdiction where it has nothing to do with where you live and where you hold your passport. But you guys can look into details. If you guys want us to cover more in details, we can do that. But there's many ways to structure your entities in UAE where you pay practically zero taxes. Then comes number 4. And this is one of the most crucial steps, actually, where you bank, where you hold your money, where you hold your assets. So there are many offshore hubs. And again, we're going to only talk about what I have done my research on, and those are the Muslim majority ones, right? So Mauritius is a good one you can look into. It's a good wealth hub, good offshore banking laws, and lots of Islamic banking options, Islamic banking accounts with offshore banking. So Mauritius is one to look at. Then you got Turkey, but I'm not a big fan when it comes to banking in Turkey. It's very old school and very outdated, and also Turkish lira is very hard to deal with, right? But Mauritius is very good. Look into that. Third, and my favorite is, I won't tell you which one I'm banking at, but this is my favorite one, Labuan, okay? So Labuan is a federal territory island just off the coast from Malaysia, okay? But it's a complete offshore banking setup. There's close to like 55 major banks there, 55 in a small federal territory island. Completely offshore, very secretive, and your assets are protected, your finance, your liquidity is protected through any currencies you want, any major currencies, USD, GBP, AUD, whatever currency you want, any major currency, you could store your liquidity in that currency, so it's not going up and down like Turkish lira. You can store it securely over there. It's offshore banking and many Islamic banking options. So look into that. If you guys need any connections to that, reach out to us and we can refer you to the right people over there. Of course, there's no referral fees or anything like that. You do your due diligence, you find out, but people we know and trust, we can let you know. So this wraps up the 4 steps that you need to follow to completely diversify your jurisdictions. So the logic here is clear. Ultimate freedom is not letting one country hold your passport and that same country control your finances in banking, and that same country control your businesses as well. You want to diversify the jurisdiction, and that's the ultimate asset class for me at this time, because this gives me true freedom in moving from one part to another without being bogged down or without being leashed or chained by one government. Let me know your guys' thoughts. If you are already far ahead than me in this specific space, I would really love to hear from you. So leave us a comment. Our team will reach out to you. We can set up something, but I'd love to learn from you if you're far ahead from this. But if this is the first time you're hearing this, comment first time and let us know your thoughts. Until the next video, Assalamu alaikum.